People often mistake familiarity and reputation for independent thinking, and it's pretty funny because we consume, like a content from a creator or some creators, and we hear some sort of thing or some sort of opinions for like 10 or more times, and suddenly their opinions become ours. And majority of the people, have borrowed opinions rather than their own. And this is not something new. This has been, I think, persist from generation where most of the people will generally agree on what's popular or what seems to be right. And I think this is even worse, especially with social media, because social media, makes it even worse because of the algorithms and the way it is designed in such a way, it repeatedly shows us what's popular, keeps on showing us the same perspective. And we just genuinely have, because of all this, popular thoughts, and we hear all their opinions again and again. Because of this reputation, we kind of adopt this way of thinking and, have this borrowed opinions from others instead of having our own. And the truth is that people often choose opinions based on who said that, like who said this opinion, who they are hearing it from, rather than if they're actually true or not. I'm not saying all of them are false or anything like that, but I see like a pattern where majority of the people would generally just agree on one thing without even having a second thought, just because somebody popular or somebody said it, or just because it's just popular, so that they can just, think like, oh, they are so that they just seem like they're someone who doesn't miss out, so that people don't see them as someone who lives under a rock or some shit like that. But what we need to understand is everyone thinks this is correct doesn't automatically make some opinions correct all the time. Just because a majority of the people agree on it, just because a majority of the people think this is right, that does not necessarily mean that the opinion is correct or it's actually true and it's better. And that does not necessarily mean that you also have to kind of agree with it just because the majority of the people agree with such opinions. Because people can naturally become emotionally attached to an opinions without never examining them. And the weird part is that we defend opinions we couldn't even examine like 5 minutes later after having such opinions. And it's pretty funny because I've experienced some of this shit as well, where basically people are LARPing about some things which they don't even have like a very much knowledge about certain things, and they're pretty much brainwashed, where basically we are not even able to explain the opinions that we have just defended 5 minutes later. And I've seen this as pretty much as well, and it's pretty funny of how it actually works. The point I'm trying to give it here is it's very important for you as a person to have your own thoughts, because majority of the people do not have their own thoughts. All right, I'm not saying you to completely disagree with everything you hear since you have watched this video. No, what I'm trying to tell you is that it's very important that you analyze before agreeing on something that it's true. Having a second thought, being able to explain something, why you support it or why you think it is true, and also the drawbacks of what your opinions on it are. Because seriously, man, a man or like a person who's not able to give any benefits about like any kind of, the man who's not able to tell any sort of benefits or any sort of good sides about the opposite side of the opinion, is literally brainwashed. Seriously, you need to understand that independent thinking doesn't mean denying everything. It means you have to be able to have your own thoughts without the need to satisfy the opinions of others. Being able to believe in certain things even if all of the people around you are against your thoughts, are against your opinions. Even if majority, like let's say all of the people are agree on certain things, like have the same kind of opinion on certain matters, you are able to have your own thoughts and you kind of disagree with majority of the people, all of the people who have these opinions. Like you feel like, no, I don't agree with it, I don't want to do that, I don't want to think that way. And that's having your own thoughts. And it's very important because majority of the people nowadays do not have their own thoughts. That's most of them are basically borrowed. Having your own thoughts is harder than having a popular one. And here's a scary thought: some of your opinions might not even be yours. So I think you should definitely give it a thinking of what all the opinions that you have been holding up until now, are they actually yours, or are they really borrowed from somebody else? Because thinking about it really also help you to identify your true self, because borrowed opinions kind of indirectly affects your personality, like your identity as well. I hope this video is helpful to you in some way. If you have any thoughts for this video or any problems with your life, you can definitely leave it down in the comments. Until then, stay disciplined.